Morning, members. Veuillez vous asseoir. Le député de Chippewa-Lamec-Miscoupe, prière.
Prions le Seigneur, let us pray. Ô Seigneur, notre Père céleste, haut et puissant, roi des rois, Seigneur des seigneurs, le seul souverain des princes qui contemplez de votre trône tous les habitants de la terre, nous vous supplions du fond de nos cœurs de regarder avec faveur notre très gracieux souverain, Seigneur souverain, le roi Charles, et de le remplir tellement de la grâce de votre Saint-Esprit qu'il fasse toujours votre volonté et qu'il marche dans vos voies. Donnez-lui l'abondance de vos dons célestes, donnez-lui la santé et le bonheur d'une longue vie. Fortifiez-le afin qu'il triomphe de tous ses ennemis et finalement, après cette vie, qu'il jouisse de la joie et de la félicité éternelle par Jésus-Christ notre Seigneur. Amen. Most gracious God, we humbly beseech Thee, as for this province in general, so especially for the Lieutenant Governor and the Legislative Assembly under our most religious and gracious King at this time assembled, that Thou would be pleased to direct and prosper all their consultation to the advancement and Thy glory, the safety, honor, and welfare of our sovereign in this province, that all things may be so ordered and settled by their endeavors upon the best and surest foundation, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us for all generations. These and all other necessaries for them and for us, we humbly beg in the name and mediation of Jesus Christ, our most blessed Lord and Savior. Amen. Ensemble, prions notre Seigneur. Together, let us pray the Lord's Prayer. Notre Père qui es aux cieux, que ton nom soit sanctifié, que ton règne vienne, que ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain de ce jour. Pardonne-nous nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons aussi à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous laisse pas entrer en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Introduction of guests. Condolences, the Minister of Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, I would ask for a few extra seconds to deliver this message. Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to offer condolences on the passing of William Bill Thompson, loved husband of Kathy Cohen Tate and devoted father to Micah Tate, who passed away at his home suddenly Thursday, November 10, 2022. Bill's responsibility to his work, colleagues and clients was his raison d'etre. A career of interesting positions culminated with the founding of Thompson & Associates Strategic Consultants, Inc., with close to 40 years of experience in economic development. Most recently, Bill was working as a facilitator on the local government file for the Kings County area on behalf of the Department of Local Government. With a commerce degree from St. Mary's University, a law degree from the University of New Brunswick, and an interest in thinking beyond the obvious, Bill wove a career that was interesting and diverse and personal. His advice, which was usually sprinkled with his infamous quick wit, was always spot on, and for that many are thankful, Mr. Speaker, including myself as his local MLA. He was always quick to take my call and offer input into any situation I would ask. Mr. Speaker, there are many on this side of the House, including you, who called him a supporter and friend. Bill and his siblings, Mac, Darla, Norma, Peter, Sandy, Jody, were the children of the late Isabel Nee Jones and Louis W. Thompson. All his relationships with his nieces, nephews, and cousins were held close to his heart, as was his sister-in-law, Shelley Cohen-Thorley, and brother-in-law, Lee Cohen. I would ask all members of the House to join me in sending our most sincere condolences to the family of our friend Bill Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
La députée de Caracat.
Monsieur le Président, le lundi 7 novembre 2022, à l'âge de 18 ans, est décédé Dylan Chiasson. Il demeurait à Paquetteville, mais il était originaire de Val-Doucette. Il était le fils de Jean-Claude Chiasson et de Nicole Gagnon-Haché. Outre ses parents et son beau-père, il laisse dans le deuil son amie de cœur Rebecca, ses frères et sœurs Ariane, Kevin et Cynthia, sa grand-mère maternelle Anne-Marie, son neveu Maxence, ainsi que plusieurs oncles, tantes, cousins, cousines et amis. Dylan était un jeune homme avec le cœur sur la main et toujours prêt à aider sa famille et ses amis. Bon travaillant, on pouvait le croiser avec son beau sourire à la coopérative de Paquetteville où il était employé. Il comptait prendre son envolée en septembre 2023 pour réaliser son rêve de devenir mécanicien. Dylan avait toujours 1001 idées en tête et vivait sa vie à 100 000 à l'heure. Débrouillard, rien ne pouvait l'arrêter. Il manquera énormément à sa famille et ses amis. Repose en paix, Dylan.
Message of congratulations and recognition, the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to say thank you to 100 women who care River Valley. To date, this group have raised a total of $111,400 in just 12 hours, which has stayed 100% local and helped numerous charities. After a hiatus of a couple of years, 100 Women Who Care got together earlier this month and awarded $14,200 to the Meduxnequag River Association. Since 1995, the Meduxnequag River Association has been acquiring and protecting our Appalachian hardwood forest along the Meduxnequag River. They have spent millions of dollars over the years on land acquisition and environmental projects. I know they will put this money from the 100 Women Who Care to good use. I ask my colleagues to join me in saying thank you to the 100 Women Who Care River Valley for their continued generosity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy de Correa-la-Vallée.
Mr. Speaker, a kaleidoscope of beautiful colors. That's how many people are describing the Falls and Gorge at Grand Falls. Thanks to a project spearheaded by Councillor David Rains, a new lighting system has been installed at the falls that effectively has the capabilities to illuminate the falls and gorge in an unlimited array of colors. Be it a solid color or a combination of colors, the effect is captivatingly beautiful. This winter, when snow builds up in the gorge, or in the spring when the gorge runs full with the spring freshet, there's no doubt that this new addition will only strengthen the tourism attraction to our area. I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating the town of Grand Falls and Councillor David Rains for this beautiful achievement, not only for the citizens of the area, but for tourists from near and far. I invite everyone to spend a night, explore the area, and enjoy the illumination of one of nature's wonders, the Falls and Gorge at Grand Falls. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Fredericton South and leader of his party.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate two Fredericton entrepreneurs, Kevin LeBoeuf of Educated Beards and Natasha Diagood of Genova Bioworks, for being recognized with the Canadian Innovation and Entrepreneurship Awards, or the CANI Awards. These awards are a national program that seek to highlight entrepreneurship in all our provinces and territories across the country. For his successful line of beard grooming products, Kevin LeBoeuf was awarded Veteran Entrepreneur of the Year, which highlights an entrepreneur who is a veteran of the Canadian Forces. The second Fredericton-based award winner was Natasha Diagood, who was recognized for her business Genova Bioworks, which has developed a natural food preservative to replace artificial food preservatives. Mr. Speaker, I invite all members to join me in congratulating Kevin LeBoeuf and Natasha Diagood for the national recognition they have achieved for their innovation and entrepreneurship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Fredericton York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to congratulate Cassandra Pitchford of Fredericton, who received the 2022 Youth Human Rights Award. A week ago, it was my honor to attend the ceremony at Government House honoring the 2022 New Brunswick Human Rights Awards recipients. Each year, the award is given by the Commission to an individual or group from New Brunswick that has shown outstanding effort, achievement, and leadership on a volunteer basis in the promotion of human rights. Cassandra Pitchford says experiencing progressive hearing loss after beginning university quickly made her realize that people might not have the tools to be able to offer accessible and inclusive services. This inspired her to push for better support for people with disabilities in New Brunswick and elsewhere. I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating Cassandra Pitchford of Fredericton, 2022 Youth Human Rights Award winner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy de Madawaska-Lilac-Edmundston.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Lors du gala de la PME le 29 octobre dernier, les chambres de commerce de la région de Haut-Madawaska et d'Edmundston ont reconnu plusieurs entreprises qui se démarquent au niveau régional, provincial et national. La Chambre de commerce de Haut-Madawaska a décerné son prix au mérite à l'entreprise Gilwood Products du quartier Béquebrook. Propriété de Gilles et Denise Morneau, l'entreprise se spécialise dans la fabrication de palettes et de bois d'allumage. Pour sa part, la Chambre de commerce de la grande région d'Edmundston a remis son prix Samuel E. Burpee à l'entreprise MO Multisolutions Maintenance du quartier Saint-Jacques. L'entreprise est la propriété de Maurice Ouellet. Lui et son équipe offrent une expertise dans les domaines de la mécanique industrielle, de la soudure, de la tuyauterie et de la machinerie. Je suis très fier des réalisations et des succès des entreprises de ma région. Félicitations et bon succès dans vos projets futurs. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The member for Memon-Cook-Tantramar.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to congratulate the winners of the Greater Dorchester Trails Photo Contest. The contest, which was held by the Greater Dorchester Moving Forward Co-op, highlighted the beauty of our region. The winners are, in first place, Melissa Trenham for her photo of Bucks Flats. In second place, Kathy Doucette for her shot of Dorchester Cape. Tied in third place are Lisa Legere for her photo of Johnson's Mills, Teresa Kennerson for her photo of Lower Rockport, and Francois Haché for his shot of Dyke Link. I'd also like to recognize Karen Crawford, Jackie Johnson, and Chloe Ronas Allen, who received honorable mentions for their photos of the landscape in the beautiful communities in the Greater Dorchester area. I invite all members of the House to join me in congratulating the winners of the Greater Dorchester Trails Photo Contest and invite everyone to go to the website of Greater Dorchester Moving Forward Co-op and check out these beautiful images. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statements by members. The Deputy Restigouche-Chalour.
Monsieur le Président, l'heure est grave. Ces derniers temps, l'Acadie vit les moments les plus difficiles de son histoire moderne. Nous avons un premier ministre qui veut effacer tous les avancées linguistiques de notre société, s'est doté depuis 50 ans. Des personnes de votre gouvernement, Monsieur le Premier ministre, portant des noms de familles comme Dastou, Légère, Alain, Savoie et autres, risquent d'être entachées à jamais par vos actions. Aux francophones, francophiles et amis de la communauté acadienne de ce gouvernement, vous avez le devoir d'arrêter ce carnage des droits d'une partie de notre communauté. Sinon, à jamais, vous ferez partie de cette histoire sombre de notre province. Levez-vous, suivez votre cœur et dissociez vos familles de ce génocide possible culturel. Bravo.
Thank you, member. The member for Fredericton South. Order. Thank you, members. The member for Fredericton South and Leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, constituents of mine have been approaching me, Anglophone constituents, and they've been asking me, what is the Premier doing? Why is he acting and speaking in ways that threaten the Francophone community? Why did he invite the former leader of the People's Alliance onto a cabinet committee to consider recommendations designed to strengthen bilingual services in New Brunswick when he is famous for wanting to weaken them? Et maintenant, il a été révélé qu'un avis juridique a été demandé pour retirer les autobus scolaires de l'autorité indépendante de nos deux systèmes scolaires, les fusionner et ensuite les privatiser. Les francophones se sentent attaqués par les actions du Premier ministre en tant que peuple et personnellement en tant qu'individu. Il doit s'arrêter et faire marche arrière.
The member from Miramichi.
Mr. Speaker, last week we learned about the extension of our government's pilot program service that successfully matched 200 internationally trained nurses with employers right here in New Brunswick. The program will now move beyond nurses to include our health professionals and workers in all regulated professionals. Our 2020 election platform targeted actions on credential recognition as part of the population growth, and we're working on it. Mr. Speaker, after the success we saw with nursing professionals, it's no surprise this government is excited to see the success this program will bring to other professions in the province, because regardless of whether the credentials are international or not, we want all who come to New Brunswick and choose to live in New Brunswick to succeed here in our beautiful province. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy Rescue Swell.
Monsieur le Président, selon le plan d'environnement, le gouvernement présente une voie vers la décarbonisation et la résilience au changement climatique. Well, je vois qu'on devrait aussi décarboniser certains émetteurs de pollution verbale en chambre aussi. Nos terrains côtiers s'érodent, des programmes sociaux sont éliminés, le gouvernement réduit encore plus le taux de taxes pour les plus riches, les professionnels de la santé quittent leur profession. Où est la résilience, la transparence et les investissements de ce gouvernement pour apporter des changements nécessaires et prioritaires pour notre société? This government threw up in the air the option of fracking, but my suggestion to this government is to frack the $774 million surplus into investments in health care with recruitment and retention of professionals, in education for additional mental health support, in housing with expediting the land transfer and building permit processes, in social initiatives to make sure every family can have food on the table, heat in their houses, or apartment and gas in their cars.
The member for Kent North.
Monsieur le Président, il est évident que ce n'est pas les conservateurs qui ont avalé le People's Alliance, mais bien le People's Alliance et le Corps qui a avalé les conservateurs. Les extrémistes sont au pouvoir. Jusqu'à preuve du contraire, pas en parole parce qu'ils ne valent pas cher ces jours ici, mais en action, les francophones n'ont plus d'alliés chez les conservateurs. Ce gouvernement n'accepte pas que les francophones sont égaux dans cette province. Higgs veut sa English Province, puis Austin veut nous déporter au Québec. Chers Acadiens et Acadiennes, nos droits fondamentaux et notre droit d'exister sont sous attaque et l'ensemble de la députation conservatrice y participe. Faites très attention aux mots qu'ils utilisent. Ils cherchent juste à être fair and equitable et faire preuve de common sense. Ce qui est juste et équitable ne doit pas être défini par la majorité. Le common sense est cette expression fourre-tout au service des extrémistes purs et élus de Dieu qui voient les francophones, les autochtones, les groupes minoritaires et les unions comme une nuisance à une société juste et équitable.
The member for Fredericton, York.
Mr. Speaker, one of the cornerstones of a free and fair society is free and fair rule of law. It's easy to take for granted, but I'm thankful to live somewhere with a functioning, robust rule of law. I'm thankful to those who make up our justice system to ensure fair and equal treatment for all. And I believe our justice system has become even stronger with the recent appointment of 13 new lawyers to the King's Council. These 13 individuals have all demonstrated outstanding practice, shown integrity and leadership, and made contributions to excellence in the profession of law. They are all senior lawyers of at least 15 years' experience, and I think we're lucky to have them continuing to work here in New Brunswick. I'd like to congratulate them on their appointment and wish them the best of luck. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy Secretary Provincial Capellet.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Minister of Finance was proud in touting the Fraser Institute's latest report regarding the Premier as a good fiscal manager. I would encourage the Finance Minister to make copies of that report and join me by taking a drive around the city. Our first stop will be at the Fredericton Community Kitchen. The Minister can ask those looking for a meal and more place to stay how the Fraser Institute report is making a difference in their lives. Par la suite, on ira au campus universitaire de UNB et St. Thomas pour discuter avec les étudiants. Le ministre pourra distribuer ce rapport et leur demander comment cette reconnaissance leur aide à payer leurs frais de scolarité. Then we'll visit the Golden Age Club, where the Minister can provide a report to all those seniors living on fixed incomes and how this recognition is helping their rising rent and increasing cost of living. Mr. Speaker, the government is sitting on a large surplus on the backs of hard-working New Brunswickers who are struggling to make ends meet. We have a social deficit in our province, and we have a premier who prefers to rely on the bottom line than helping those in need. Thank you.
Plus tôt cette semaine, 21 organismes francophones et acadiens ont demandé la démission de l'ancien chef du People's Alliance du comité ad hoc sur la révision de la loi sur les langues officielles du Nouveau-Brunswick, ainsi que la transformation du comité ad hoc en comité de l'Assemblée législative. Le caucus vert et moi, nous sommes d'accord. Et voilà que nous apprenons que le gouvernement envisage de privatiser les transports scolaires et de supprimer les droits linguistiques qui y sont liés. La crainte que les droits linguistiques soient érodés se réalise. Yesterday on the radio, I heard the former leader of the People's Alliance painting himself as a victim of cancel culture. This is not what's happening, Mr. Speaker. Francophones, Acadians, and their allies are standing up against years of his and the Premier's attacks on constitutionally protected rights. Monsieur le Président, ça suffit.
The member for Moncton Southwest.
And the fear-mongering continues, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, my colleague from Moncton South spoke about the New Brunswick advantage. Our province has an advantage, both physically and economically, and we enjoy this advantage because of our advantage in leadership. Yesterday, the Fraser Institute gave our Premier top marks for fiscal management. Mr. Speaker, our Premier is #1 and by more than 10 points over his closest rival. And he was the only Premier to keep spending growth below the rate of economic growth. The Liberal opposition may not understand this concept, since spending it faster than they are taking it in seems to be their approach to taxpayer dollars. I only make that remark based upon everything we have ever seen them do. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to looking after taxpayers and their money, we have the best leader in Canada, and he has the marks to prove it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Fredericton Southwest, Leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd request to revert to introduction of guests.
Agreed? Agreed. Member from Fredericton Southwest, Leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to extend warm greetings this morning to Rebecca Blavote, who is in the gallery this morning. She is one of the candidates for in the upcoming municipal elections for the town of Heartland. She's also the Vice President Anglophone for the New Brunswick Green Party's Provincial Council and the OR for the Green Party's Riding Association in Carleton. Mr. Speaker, I invite my fellow members to join me in welcoming Rebecca Blavote to the Legislature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. The chef de l'opposition officielle.
Mr. Speaker, after pressure yesterday, the Minister of Health has finally agreed to release his acting Chief Medical Officer of Health from media availability. It's a first step, but what we're asking for is a full public briefing so that New Brunswickers can tune in firsthand and get the information directly from them. That's what we saw yesterday from Dr. Strang in Nova Scotia, who had a live-streamed session. They said respiratory illnesses among children are at historic levels and urged parents to get their children vaccinated against influenza and COVID-19. They said acute care services for children are stretched from a perfect storm of viruses all piling up on each other. And we know that with only 1% to 2% of children under 5 having both COVID-19 doses and only 10% of those children having a flu shot, where is public health and where is the Minister of Health and his department with an awareness campaign to encourage vaccination for COVID and for flu shots to increase those numbers?
Minister of Health.
Well, I appreciate the question from the Leader of the Opposition today. And, you know, typical opposition style. They're never satisfied. Never satisfied. Mr. Speaker, the Chief Public Health Officer has agreed to make himself available for media to answer the questions. And why doesn't the member opposite let that event take place, see if the answers are come forth with respect to the questions that have been asked. And again, it's never enough for the opposition. You know, it's never enough, no matter what you do. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, the Chief Public Health Officer has been engaged. Public Health has been engaged in answering questions from the media. A significant number of questions come in a written form, and a lot of research has to be done, has to occur to make sure that the accurate information is given back. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to see that the Chief Medical Officer has decided to come out and have media availability today.
Prime Minister. Chef de l'Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, concerns from the public are mounting and they want to tune in and get the information firsthand. But all the minister can do and offer for advice is to wear a mask if you wish, wash your hands, or sneeze into your sleeve. Meanwhile, keeping his Chief Medical Officer of Health in the doghouse. As you know, temperatures are rising, holidays are around the corner, people are going to be moving indoors, likely increasing the spread of these viruses. But like I said yesterday, more information that New Brunswickers can have, the better, so they can make decisions about their own health to protect themselves or protect their loved ones, Mr. Speaker. So what is the plan from this government if the situation gets worse? Is there a plan to activate New Brunswickers? And what would trigger government action?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this government acts every day, 24/7, to make sure that the people are looked after. Mr. Speaker, we work with the RHAs that are responsible for the day-to-day operations of healthcare here in the province of New Brunswick and the clinical availability for people that are in need. And Mr. Speaker, I gave a list of things that should be done based on, again, information coming from public health. I could go over that list again. I could add to it, Mr. Speaker, but the fact of the matter is people need to assess their own risk. If they're not feeling comfortable, if they're ill, they can stay home. They can take their own temperature to see if they're running a temperature, and if they are, they need to take action on that. And Mr. Speaker, again, the opposition doesn't seem to be satisfied with the fact that, again, day in and day out, this government works with our healthcare providers who stand up on a daily basis to help the people in the province of New Brunswick. Yet it's never good enough for the opposition. And that disparity is really unfortunate because we want to thank all the healthcare workers for the great job that they do.
Speaker, I'm going to turn my attention to ERs. We're still seeing and hearing horror stories of people with long waits for emergency rooms, people sleeping on the floors. Another story was out today. A mother had to travel to 3 different hospitals to get services from various emergency departments. We've seen some editorials in the last several weeks from different healthcare professionals. There was a Dr. Linda LeBlanc who wrote a commentary in local media with some insight on how we could address this healthcare crisis. And with closures of hospital beds, nursing home beds, ERs due to a lack of staff, she indicated the governments need to provide family physicians with the opportunity to work in multidisciplinary teams. It was a key suggestion that we brought forward in our report to stem the bleeding in healthcare, Mr. Speaker. The nurses union was in for a commentary. They're saying the same thing, setting up clinics around nurse practitioners, extending privileges, setting those clinics up around them. Where is the urgency from this government to move and make more initiatives around multidisciplinary care centres to alleviate pressures on ERs?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this government is well aware of the urgency that is needed in healthcare, and that's why we're acting. We're acting on a day-to-day basis, Mr. Speaker, and we know that the demands are very, very high. And that's why we've tried to fill the gaps with some other options, such as the e-Visit MB, that actually saw 800 people in one day. Mr. Speaker, that's significant. And we know that's not the end-all, be-all when it comes to healthcare, but it's filling a gap. Mr. Speaker, we've activated the Patient Connect and the Health Link, which again is linking patients up to clinical situations similar to what's being suggested here by the opposition, where the patient can go in, get their treatment, and with a common record go back and have the follow-up that's needed. Mr. Speaker, that's reduced the wait time or the waiting list for people without physicians down to 54,000. Mr. Speaker, that's a significant decrease. It's still not good enough. We know that, and we're continuing to work.
Monsieur le Président, je tourne maintenant vers le Premier ministre qui nous a assuré au cours de la dernière semaine et des derniers mois qu'il n'affaiblirait pas ou ne supprimerait pas les droits linguistiques dans sa révision de la LLO. J'ai du mal à comprendre sa stratégie pour gérer ses relations avec les francophones de la province. Nommer le chef de l'Alliance au comité de révision qui a reconfirmé sa position envers les langues cette semaine, abolir l'immersion française, menacer d'éliminer le commissaire aux langues officielles, et nous apprenons maintenant qu'il cherche des moyens de contourner la Charte et la LLO. Qu'essayez-vous d'accomplir, Monsieur le Premier ministre? Ce n'est pas certainement l'unité dans la province. Si c'est une stratégie, ce n'est pas une bonne. Pourquoi prendre une telle approche de division, créant des troubles dans la province sans raison? Vous devriez être fiers de mettre votre empreinte sur les droits linguistiques comme ceux qui vous ont précédés, mais pas en les supprimant, pas en honorant votre engagement électoral de 1989, mais en apportant des améliorations. Pourquoi agissez-vous de la sorte, Monsieur le Premier ministre?
The Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's an interesting discussion here this morning, the Leader of the Opposition and, in fact, the group on the opposite side of the House talking about nothing with substance because they have no real substance in any of their comments, Mr. Speaker, because there has been no erosion of rights. There will not be any erosion of rights, and that is clear. So, Mr. Speaker, they can have all of this nuance, all this innuendo, all this fear-mongering, all this continual debate, but, Mr. Speaker, not one element of substance. So wouldn't it be interesting, for once, Mr. Speaker, if there was any real factual information being presented that justified the comments being made today? So it's unfortunate that we can't have open discussion in our province. It's unfortunate that we want to simply silence everyone who doesn't agree or has a different opinion. Well, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe that diversity is important in our province. We believe that as we all speak to one another and understand each other's position, we'll build a better province, Mr. Speaker, and that is our goal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, Monsieur le Premier ministre veut des faits? En voici encore. Hier, on a appris que le gouvernement conservateur envisage un système d'autobus privé et bilingue au Nouveau-Brunswick, ce qui contreviendrait à l'article 23 de la Charte canadienne des droits et libertés qui garantit le droit à l'éducation dans la langue minoritaire. Non seulement les conservateurs envisagent l'élimination de la dualité linguistique dans le transport scolaire, mais il y a également une date sur les documents obtenus qui indique que le tout débuterait en septembre 2023, donc la prochaine rentrée scolaire. Monsieur le Premier ministre, la population est extrêmement inquiète. Pouvez-vous me dire clairement si vous irez de l'avant avec ce nouveau système d'autobus privé et bilingue?
Mr. Speaker, there isn't any evidence of any timeline that's going to say, yes, we have been looking at, can we work with municipalities, Mr. Speaker, as other people do in other provinces? Could we have a bilingual bus service, Mr. Speaker, in the cities of our province? Could we help the cities be able to fund their bus service, Mr. Speaker, in a more economical way because they have more people, more kids, more people on the bus, like other cities do, Mr. Speaker. And you know what? You know what is the issue we're facing, Mr. Speaker? QP put forward their proposal for wage increases. Average of 25%, 30 the first year, 28 the second year, and 22 the next year. Mr. Speaker, how can that possibly be reasonable? And I'm not sure what the members opposite would think about that, but we are going to be forced to look at ways to do things differently, Mr. Speaker, because we won't be able to afford anything else. And, Mr. Speaker, that is why we look at all the options. But there's no timeline, there's no substance, once again, just another fear-mongering effort that is on common practice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur le Président, on a rarement vu un premier ministre qui ne comprend pas les lois, qui ne comprend pas la loi sur les langues officielles, qui ne comprend même pas le concept de dualité linguistique dans la seule province officiellement bilingue au Nouveau-Brunswick, qui explore des avenues qui seraient très dangereuses légalement, qui n'arrête pas de nous dire que, bon, on fait de la division, c'est lui qui l'a créé, la division. On veut une province unie, juste, équitable, et ce premier ministre nous divise, et son caucus conservateur, il n'y en a pas un de ce bord-là qui est capable de se lever puis nous défendre. Vous êtes tous silencieux, l'autre bord. Il n'y en a pas un qui est capable de nous défendre. Il n'y en a pas un qui est capable de défendre la loi sur les langues officielles. Il n'y en a pas un qui est capable de défendre la dualité linguistique. On entend qu'il y a d'autres documents qui circulent. Quelles sont vos intentions à cet effet?
Au contraire, Monsieur le Président, the actual review, working with cities that was done, I don't know, looked at it a year ago maybe or so, but the cities were keen, Mr. Speaker. The cities, and I'm talking about the 3 major cities with bus system, maybe even the 4th one, Mr. Speaker, that has a bus system. But they were keen to look at how they could offset the cost of the public transportation. So, Mr. Speaker, there is no violation of constitutional rights. There will not be any violation of constitutional rights. We will continue to build our province with 2 linguistic groups that are helping to ensure the economic, the viability, the cultural future of our province. And, Mr. Speaker, everything else is only a consideration of what can we do to continue to grow and economically thrive and survive in every community in this province. So, Mr. Speaker, if the group across the aisle are afraid to look at options of how we maintain not only our constitutional obligations, but how we foster growth in our province, that's a real shame, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Leader Carrick.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, le Premier ministre évoque les cités et les municipalités. Est-ce que le ministre de la Réforme municipale est au courant de ça? Est-ce que Monsieur le Premier ministre aurait fait de la consultation auprès des municipalités ou est-ce qu'encore une fois, c'est tout fait en cachette? Qu'est-ce qui se passe avec ça? Et d'ailleurs, Monsieur le ministre de l'Éducation, qui est responsable de l'éducation de nos enfants, qui doit comprendre, je l'espère, contrairement au Premier ministre, le concept de dualité. On aimerait savoir, Monsieur le ministre de l'Éducation, quelle est votre position sur les autobus bilingues et privés, parce que hier, on a cru entendre que vous seriez OK avec ça. Donc, je vais vous laisser l'opportunité de vous lever et de dire publiquement si vous êtes pour ou contre ces autobus bilingues et privés. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, the question. Order. Mr. Speaker, the reason I stood up here because the question was asked, are the municipalities aware of this, and what were the discussions? Mr. Speaker, I had conversations with the Cities Association directly, Mr. Speaker, probably a year, 2 years ago, and we discussed what were options, what were benefits for the city, and transportation was one of them, Mr. Speaker, because they were looking at greater viability and greater capacity within their system to serve more citizens in their communities and in their cities. So, Mr. Speaker, once again, it's a conversation where you don't put boxes around your thoughts, you don't put walls around your thoughts. You say, how do we manage and go forward together in the best interest of the community? And, Mr. Speaker, I reiterate, while at the same time ensuring that all constitutional rights and obligations are protected. There is no room to wiggle around that, Mr. Speaker. It's a constitutional right we are not only proud of, we're part of, and we will continue to be so.
The Deputy Leader Bathurst West Belfast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Finance. Earlier this fall, the Minister of Energy, responsible for energy, announced a mini-split or heat pump program for $30 million. Earlier this week, the Minister of Finance, in one of his answers to me, talked about a $400 million mini-split and insulation program. $370 million in the difference. Can the Minister explain why the difference?
Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the question. I appreciate that from the member opposite. The program has always been a significant program, and we had a certain amount of money approved for it, knowing full well that this was going to be a significant program. And I stood in the rotunda yesterday, spoke with media, and confirmed very directly that we will ensure that the government of New Brunswick will be there to make sure that this rolls out and fund it accordingly. We have capacity that we've built within the contractor network. We have supply that's available, and the government will be there to fund this to ensure that every New Brunswicker that qualifies, needs, and will benefit from this program will be served by it.
Deputy Leader Bathurst West Belfast.
Mr. Speaker, I was asking the Minister of Finance the question earlier this week about his report, his Q2 report, and there is a program that was announced for $30 million for mini-splits, and in his answer, he's talking about a $400 million program. There has been no announcement for a $400 million program. Can we get some details on what this is? And I'll read right off his answer. How about $400 million for mini-splits and insulation? How about that? How about that? Well, Mr. Speaker, how about it? What the heck is it?
Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
How about that? There you go. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to the member opposite for the question. Yes, as my colleague said, we will qualify people appropriately. New Brunswickers that qualify will absolutely get it. That's the bottom line. You know what? If you qualify in New Brunswick, you're going to get it. That's what this province needs, and that's what this government does, is live up to its promises. There's also a need to help people with oil. There's also a need to help people with food. The food and fuel benefit, I can tell you, similar to what we had this spring, will be coming back. Very similar program. We're looking at different ways to help New Brunswickers right now. We're looking at different ways to help New Brunswickers in the future as well. It isn't about just now. This recession, if we go into the recession, please Lord not, but if we do go into the recession, they expect that it could go for a while. Even l'Acadie Nouvelle said our surplus, our surplus could be what sees us through the upcoming recession.
Time and member for Bathurst West Bay.
Mr. Speaker, $30 million was announced, $370 million apparently left for insulation. That's 38,300,000 bundles of fiberglass pink. I hope he called Home Depot and reserve, because that's a lot of fiberglass. When I asked the question, it was about the $167 million it cost overruns in a department. Did the minister answer me about what the cost overruns were with a program that hasn't even been announced yet? I'm trying to find out what new programs had been spent in the first 2 quarters, and he's talking about an imaginary program that we're going to find out about someday. That's not an answer. Let's get back to the original question. What original programs did the government bring out of that $167 million, and how much was cost overruns? How much?
Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development.
Monsieur le Président, ça c'est incroyable. Je ne comprends la question à la membre opposite. It's hard to understand. Maybe I do understand that the member opposite is standing there criticizing and questioning a department, a utility, and a finance minister coming forward saying that the province of New Brunswick will deliver on a program that's going to provide for 35,000 homes in New Brunswick. Mr. Speaker, am I hearing the member opposite criticizing and complaining about that? We understood from the beginning that this was something that we would start with, move forward, evolve, and see through to the end to make sure that it brought the desired result to New Brunswickers. Mr. Speaker, I spoke about this yesterday at length when I said we've got to start looking at the end result and saying, are we going to get there? Let's work together. We know that there are costs associated with delivering, and we're willing to deliver the goods, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear. The Deputy to Kent North.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Moi, ma question, vu que le ministre de l'Éducation n'a pas eu la chance de se lever, va être directement au ministre de l'Éducation par rapport à l'histoire des autobus bilingues. Puis, c'est clair, l'article 23 protège le droit à la dualité, à l'instruction en français. Il y a même l'arrêt Beaulac à la Cour suprême qui va plus loin puis qui dit que cette loi-là, cet article-là doit être interprété de façon ouverte pour protéger, si vous voulez, les environnements éducatifs autour de ça. Donc, ma question pour le ministre de l'Éducation, est-ce que vous êtes d'accord, vous qui êtes garant de protéger la dualité en éducation, est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec des autobus bilingues dans cette province?
Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est un affront personnel ici ce matin. Pour avoir indiqué qu'on est en train de commettre un génocide culturel contre les Acadiens et Acadiennes, je ne peux pas croire ce que j'entends. Je défendrai toujours les droits linguistiques qui sont protégés par la Constitution du Canada et l'Acte de l'Amérique du Nord britannique de 1867, toujours. Donc, cette idée pour examiner comment on va se passer dans les cités, où je crois que tout le monde prend les autobus de la cité, c'est pas quelque chose de différent. Mais on ne va pas examiner les autobus bilingues, ça c'est une histoire ancienne. Mes racines familiales, là, je peux les tracer jusqu'à 1755 à la déportation des Acadiens.
Merci. Le député de Côte-Nord.
Quelle réponse, Monsieur le Président! Parce que hier, pendant une discussion privée avec le ministre, il m'a dit que les autobus bilingues étaient une Moses de bonne idée, Monsieur le Président. Et étaient une très bonne idée. J'étais pas le seul député assis à côté de lui. Fait qu'il peut dire ce qu'il veut aujourd'hui. Lors d'une discussion privée, il a dit que c'était une excellente, en fait, pour le citer, une merveilleuse idée. Maintenant, pour les enfants qui vont avoir à prendre les autobus bilingues du ministre, que ce soit dans une cité ou pas, est-ce que le ministre va s'assurer, si c'est le cas, que tous les conducteurs d'autobus des cités seront bilingues pour accommoder les enfants? Est-ce que vous êtes en train de dire que vous allez assurer que tous les conducteurs de chaque autobus à Fredericton, Saint-Jean et à Moncton exigeront d'être bilingues? C'est ça que vous êtes en train de dire, que vous voulez mettre à la porte les unilingues?
The Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. La conversation qui a été, je ne sais pas, c'était pas privé, évidemment. Je pensais qu'il m'amusait. Je n'étais pas sérieux.
Order, please. Order.
Quoi? Qu'est-ce que tu dis?
Minister.
Ce n'est pas qu'on n'a aucun contrôle sur les conducteurs des autobus dans les cités. Ce qu'on peut contrôler, c'est le système de transportation des élèves qu'on a dans notre province sur les autobus. Alors, on va assurer qu'on ne va pas avoir les autobus bilingues. Au moment donné, on n'a pas discuté cela. Personnellement, je n'ai aucune intention de le discuter. Je suis prêt, comme j'ai dit, à la présidente de la Société des Acadiens et Acadiennes hier soir, protéger les droits.
The Deputy to Takiti-Shiloh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Minister of Energy Development put on quite the show for us during question period. No need for substance when you've mastered the art of skating on thin ice. A very simple question was asked about why the government of New Brunswick would loan NB Power a total of $200 million. Is NB Power using the mystery money for infrastructure project, or are they using the mystery money to cover operation costs? They're obviously not using it to buy $200 million worth of heat pumps and insulation. So I ask the minister once again, why did the government of New Brunswick loan NB Power $200 million?
Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development.
Mr. Chair, to the member opposite, this is an exact example of what I addressed in a conversation I had on the floor of this legislature last night, when I was talking about attempts to pull at strings to create a narrative that doesn't tell the facts, doesn't reflect reality, and tries to paint a skewed picture. The member opposite, if he had even a cursory knowledge of the way that the Crown Corporation operates within the Department of Energy and the scope of government, he would realize that short-term, he quoted the legislation yesterday that allows the exchange back and forth that happens on a transactional and an annual basis and has taken place during periods of time. Maybe he should ask his leader right now, when she was sitting advising the former Premier of the province, Brian Gallant, about how that took place, because that's a transactional situation that happens all the time. To try to create poor political points out of that should be ashamed of yourself on the other side, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy to Takiti-Shiloh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's a little bit concerning is when he did media scrum yesterday and a journalist asked him about the $200 million, he answered he didn't know. In order for an OIC to be signed by the LG, there's different steps to be taken. One, your staff has to get the MEC ready. Two, the minister needs to sign the MEC before it goes to cabinet. Three, cabinet needs to discuss and approve what is being brought forward. And after that, it goes to the LG office and sign. So you're telling me you had no idea what this $200 million was for? You had 3 occasions, Minister, 3 occasions to get to know why NB Power was asking for this loan. So I ask you, why did you answer to the journalist that you did not know what this loan was about?
Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development.
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite thinks for 1 second that that was a $200 million check that was written for one item, then he's sorely mistaken. Now, you know, I know the Liberals have written $70 million checks for a bridge to nowhere that wound up turning into a mess, so maybe they would think that their history of writing large checks that wound up going down a drain somewhere is commonplace. But this is a situation where there's a loan that comes in and out for a variety of different things. And if I'm standing there talking, I wouldn't have the time to go through a list of a variety of the different components that are involved in this. This is not one check that goes to say, here, I can't cover the lunch bill today. Here you go, we're going to front you. This is not a one-item thing. This is a transactional and annual process that takes place, and I would expect that the member opposite should do more homework than that, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the shareholders of NB Power, the people in New Brunswick deserves answers and transparency. They are supporting NB Power's $5 billion debt and are now facing an 8.9 rate increase on their power bill. There's a $4 billion refurbishment project for Mattaquack on the table, and to top that, NB Power management and the minister are providing a multi-million-dollar pre-retirement package to employees. And still, nothing put forward by NB Power on their vision for the future. So, did the minister know ahead of time what this loan was for, or did the Premier force the minister to sign this document like he did for the letter for the EUB? So I asked the Minister of Energy, why is he covering the reasons for this $200 million loan?
Minister of Energy Development.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, the absolute rubbish that's coming from the opposition this morning has reached an all-time low. They can't get us when it comes to debating an economic policy. They can't get us when it comes to rank-and-file questions, so then they try to go at a low level like something like this. The member opposite does or should know that the province of New Brunswick borrows on behalf of the utility to allow the leverage for interest in a variety of different factors. The province of New Brunswick doesn't get down into the details of that. Now, does the member opposite wish to look back at the series of years where this has taken place, where it's been an in, or it's been an out, and it's been an in? This is a transactional annual process that takes place where the province of New Brunswick endeavours to borrow on behalf of the utility as the shareholder. Obviously a lack of business knowledge, obviously a lack of shareholder knowledge, obviously a lack of governing experience is framing the questions from the member opposite, and I suggest he does a little bit more research before he stands on this floor and talks about something as serious.
Leader of the official opposition. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais revenir avec le Premier ministre. Il ne semble pas comprendre aujourd'hui par ses réponses en ce qui concerne les droits linguistiques, où il sait bel et bien exactement ce qu'il fait. Mais je vais lui demander s'il connaît bien la signification de l'article 16.1 de la Charte canadienne qui prévoit la communauté linguistique française et la communauté linguistique anglaise du Nouveau-Brunswick ont un statut et des droits et privilèges égaux, notamment les droits des institutions d'enseignement distinctes et aux institutions culturelles distinctes nécessaires à leur protection et promotion. Ou à l'article 23 pour la langue d'instruction, le droit d'y faire instruire leurs enfants dans leur langue. Quelle est son interprétation de la Charte et les droits linguistiques, Monsieur le Président? Parce que par ses réponses aujourd'hui, ça ne semble pas qu'il comprend. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, I think I do certainly understand, and not only understand, but I'm obligated to ensure that we achieve it and foster it and support it, Mr. Speaker. We've said here, there is no threat to constitutional rights. There is no threat, there's no substance to this ongoing dialogue here that something's changed. Mr. Speaker, it has not. Nothing has changed. And the idea, and so we're waiting for the report, which I said will be out in the next few weeks, Mr. Speaker. The opposition will know at that point in time, okay, we're moving forward with the items on that recommendation, Mr. Speaker, on the Commissioner's recommendation. But there's no substance whatsoever to any erosion of rights, any erosion of constitutional obligations. We continue, as any government will that continues to be in power in this province, will continue to foster, support, and be obligated to the constitutional rights that we are so honoured to be part of, Mr. Speaker. We are unique in this province. We're better together. Let's ensure we stay that way.
Question period time has expired. I would remind members and the Leader of the Official Opposition, during one of your questions, you named a member, and you should be using their ministerial position. Thank you. State the point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, point of orders have to be raised immediately at the first available opportunity. And I want to review Hansard first because the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources used some inflammatory words, was personal attacks, and I want to review that, and it may even be a matter of privilege, but I will review it later today, and I'll come back to the House when we next sit. Thank you.
You know what it is, you don't raise it. Come on, Guy, you know better than that.
Thank you, member.
Well, I was raising it for the Environment Minister. There was a lot of hot air, and I'm surprised you didn't.
Order, please. Order. Tabling of documents. Statement by ministers. The Minister of Tourism, Heritage and Culture. Good luck.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the 4 legendary performers who were inducted into the New Brunswick Country Music Hall of Fame last month, and I applaud the organizers responsible for hosting this special ceremony and gala in Sussex. Their photos have now been installed on the wall of the Hall of Fame at the Fredericton Inn, and I hope everyone pays a visit. I want to take a moment to honour this year's inductees: Elva Kelso-Greer of Innervale, Big John T-Bone Little of Niagara Falls, Frederick D. Shaw of Sussex, and Ralph Henderson, posthumously of Bayview. These talented men and women have made their mark on country music in New Brunswick. They bring our communities alive and generously give their time and talent to support countless charity events. C'est avec fierté que le ministère du Tourisme, du Patrimoine et de la Culture a soutenu cette 39e édition de la cérémonie d'intronisation. Mr. Speaker, I'm so thankful to our New Brunswick musicians. They are the pride of our communities. I invite my colleagues to join me in congratulating this year's inductees and thank them for sharing their extraordinary talents with all of us. Thank you, merci.
Deputy Caracat.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je me joins à Madame la ministre du Patrimoine, du Tourisme et de la Culture pour féliciter, moi aussi, ces 4 personnes qui ont été intronisées au Temple de la renommée de la musique country au Nouveau-Brunswick, soit Eva Kelso-Greer, Big John T-Bone Little, Frédéric D. Shaw et Ralph Henderson. Je remarque que Madame la ministre a aussi mentionné que les artistes en musique, souvent, ils donnent généreusement de leur temps et de leur talent au profit d'innombrables activités caritatives. Puis, je veux souligner que c'est souvent le cas lorsqu'on est musicien, qu'on est demandé de participer à des activités bénéfices, à des concerts bénéfices. À chaque fois qu'on veut amasser de l'argent, en fait, pour une cause, on demande à des artistes de donner de leur temps. On ne demanderait jamais ça à un plombier ou à un mécanicien ou à un électricien. Mais les artistes, on est continuellement demandé de donner de notre temps au profit de causes dont on est très fiers de faire, sauf qu'on a besoin d'avoir, je pense que les artistes ont besoin d'avoir une reconnaissance, et cette reconnaissance-là, ce serait d'adopter le statut de l'artiste pour être en mesure d'avoir une façon plus équitable de vivre. Alors, bravo à ces personnes, mais on s'attend que le gouvernement va poser des actions concrètes.
Le député de Kent-Nord.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Moi aussi, je veux joindre mes collègues puis féliciter les légendes de la musique qui ont été intronisées au Temple de la renommée de la musique country au Nouveau-Brunswick. Elva Kelso-Greer, Big John T-Bone Little, Frederick D. Shaw et Ralph Henderson. à titre posthume. Moi, je viens d'une région de la province qui est très reconnue pour son country. En fait, j'aimerais prendre l'occasion de féliciter Jason Ouellet, qui vient d'être nommé directeur général de la Radio Beau Séjour. Radio Beau Séjour qui est incroyable au niveau culturel, au niveau de l'identité, au niveau de l'expression des gens de par chez nous. Je veux dire, des musiciens country par chez nous, il y en a à la tonne. Puis, moi, je veux quand même soutenir ma collègue dans ce qu'elle a dit par rapport au statut de l'artiste. Je pense que ça serait une excellente façon de réellement reconnaître. Je pense que tout est en place pour le mettre en place. Il faut juste un peu de volonté.
Time member. The minister responsible for Opportunities, New Brunswick.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai le plaisir de prendre la parole à la Chambre aujourd'hui pour parler de la récente annonce concernant le projet pilote sur les travailleurs critiques de Nouveau-Brunswick en collaboration avec le gouvernement fédéral. Ce projet pilote de 5 ans vise à attirer des représentants étrangers qualifiés pour des postes qui sont difficiles à pourvoir et qui continueront de l'attirer aux moyens de marché de travail au Nouveau-Brunswick. These skilled foreign nationals will meet labour needs when qualified Canadians or permanent residents aren't available to do so. The positions include work in metal fabrication, forestry, agriculture, and food products. This employer-driven immigration stream will allow participating employers to have more flexibility to bring newcomers into the province to fill those vacancies. As we know, delays in the delivery of language testing, education credential assessments, and obtaining employment documents can create barriers in the recruitment process. Je tiens d'ailleurs à souligner que les employeurs participants contribueront au succès de ce nouveau volet d'immigration en fournissant des services complets et des services financiers. While there is still lots of work to do and many challenges to face, the province truly appreciates the federal government's collaboration on immigration, and we look forward to working together as we continue to advance shared economic immigration priorities. One of our priorities is to grow our population base to benefit our province as well as our entire country. Les nouveaux arrivants contribueraient grandement aux communautés et aux entreprises de Nouveau-Brunswick et nous avons hâte d'aider les employeurs d'accoler ces personnes au sein de leur équipe. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je tiens à remercier la ministre pour cette déclaration ministérielle aujourd'hui concernant le projet pilote sur les travailleurs critiques du Nouveau-Brunswick. Monsieur le Président, certainement, on vit une crise démographique au Nouveau-Brunswick. On a besoin d'aller chercher des travailleurs expérimentés à l'étranger pour s'assurer que nos entreprises et nos industries puissent bien fonctionner ici au Nouveau-Brunswick. Et certainement, ce projet pilote-là, en collaboration, comme la ministre l'a mentionné, avec le gouvernement fédéral, va certainement aider à faire une différence. Mais aussi, Monsieur le Président, il y a une chose importante qu'il faut souligner, c'est les entreprises qui ont décidé de s'impliquer à l'intérieur de cette initiative provinciale fédérale. Si nous n'avions pas ces entreprises-là, et puis je pense que je vais en nommer quand même quelques-uns, puis j'espère ne pas me tromper, mais Groupe Savoie, Sonimel, Cook Aquaculture, McCain, Irving, à titre d'exemple, c'est des industries primaires où est-ce qu'on doit s'assurer qu'on puisse continuer à valoriser nos industries. C'est des entreprises qui ont pris aussi une responsabilité, non pas une responsabilité uniquement morale, mais une responsabilité aussi financière, afin de s'assurer qu'on puisse apporter ces gens-là ici au Nouveau-Brunswick, qu'on puisse s'assurer de les former, d'ajuster aussi le dossier de la langue si nécessaire. Et donc, il faut les remercier aussi pour leur implication financière et morale dans le dossier. Et aussi, Monsieur le Président, je veux mentionner à la ministre, un des éléments importants, c'est l'intégration future de ces nouveaux arrivants-là. Ce n'est pas seulement donner la responsabilité à nos entreprises, mais assurons-nous aussi que le gouvernement va faire les démarches nécessaires pour que l'intégration de ces nouveaux arrivants et leurs familles puisse être positive pour qu'ils demeurent ici, au Nouveau-Brunswick. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Le député de Kent-Nord.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est clairement, je veux dire, la manque de main-d'œuvre est une réalité dans toutes nos communautés. Et puis, on est toujours fiers d'accueillir des nouvelles personnes dans nos communautés. Mais il y a beaucoup de problèmes qui viennent avec une rentrée de personnes, peu importe de où ils viennent, que le gouvernement doit s'attarder, doit s'attaquer à ces problèmes-là de d'autres façons. Le logement en région rurale est un gros problème et donc il faut que le gouvernement s'implique de façon proactive, pas juste dire on va laisser de l'argent ici dans un pot puis on va laisser le marché libre s'en occuper. Ça ne fonctionne pas comme ça. On peut voir, ça ne fonctionne pas comme ça. On le sait que le marché libre va amener les constructions dans des endroits urbains où il y a une plus grande valeur. Et donc, il faut aussi mettre en place des programmes anti-racisme. Parce que, soyons honnêtes, il y a du racisme au Nouveau-Brunswick. Et donc, ça arrive que ces nouveaux arrivants-là peuvent se sentir très mal. Et il faut, en tant que société, qu'on travaille fort là-dessus pour défaire ça. Il faut amener des médecins de famille. Les gens qui viennent nous rencontrer, il faut qu'on ait des médecins de famille, un système de soins de santé qui peuvent les accueillir. Finalement, je parlerai aussi rapidement, Monsieur le Président, du seuil d'immigration francophone. Il va falloir augmenter le seuil d'immigration francophone.
Le ministère responsable de la Société de développement régional.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai le plaisir de prendre la parole à la Chambre aujourd'hui pour faire une déclaration sur les langues officielles. Alors que mon collègue, le ministre responsable de la francophonie, participe au 18e sommet de la francophonie à Durban, en Tunisie. Il y a 50 ans.
Minister, state your point of order, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Minister of Regional Development Corporation tried to make a statement, similar statement on a ministerial statement. And at that time, he was informed that he wasn't responsible for that. Today, he's trying to make the same statement for the minister responsible for de la francophonie. It demonstrates once again, that this government does not understand what the Official Languages Act is all about. The person responsible for that act is the Premier. And so this is not his portfolio, nor is it the Minister de la Francophonie. So he's making a statement on behalf of someone else that should be making it.
Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague, the Minister of RDC, is the acting Minister of the Francophonie this week. He is standing up in that capacity to give a minister's statement, Mr. Speaker. The opposition members have taken no exception to me being the acting House Leader this week, so I don't know why they take any exception to the member from Miramichi being the acting Minister of the Francophonie this week.
Members, the Deputy to Kent North.
Merci, Monsieur le ministre. Je voulais juste, Monsieur le ministre, oui, Monsieur le Président, anciennement ministre, mais Monsieur le Président, je veux juste faire mon point. Je pense que tout le monde a fait leur point, je voulais faire le mien. C'est clairement écrit que le ministre veut faire une déclaration sur les langues officielles. Je veux vous rappeler que la loi sur les langues officielles est très, très claire que le ministre responsable de ce dossier-là est le premier ministre. Et si le premier ministre veut faire cette déclaration-là, qu'il le fasse lui-même, Monsieur le Président.
Members, I will refer you to point 40-1. On the calling of the order, statements by ministers, a minister of the Crown may make a brief statement on or explanation of government policy or ministerial administration. I'll allow the minister to continue with his statement. My ruling, member.
You can't question the Speaker.
Thank you.
I'm going to question it. It's not a ruling.
Member, I've made my decision. Minister, continue.
Does the Premier not want to make a statement? Official language.
I have asked you to be seated.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai le plaisir de prendre la parole à la Chambre aujourd'hui pour faire une déclaration sur la langue officielle. Alors que mon collègue, le ministre responsable de la francophonie...
Member, you may leave the room.
I'm going to leave the room. That's right. Where's the Premier?
Proceed, Minister.
Alors que le ministre responsable de la francophonie participe au 18e sommet de la francophonie à Durban, en Tunisie. Il y a 50 ans, votre gouvernement rêvait que la communauté francophone, anglophone et autochtone du Nouveau-Brunswick puissent cohabiter en toute harmonie. Aujourd'hui, ce rêve nous habite encore, mais nous ne faisons presque aucun progrès. Quelque chose a mal tourné au cours de route. Nous devons donc trouver une solution et nous devons la trouver ensemble. Nous tenons à ce que nos concitoyens acadiens et francophones sachent que nous serons toujours là pour protéger leurs droits, mais que nous le ferons respectueusement, Monsieur le Président, parce que nous voulons faire partie de la solution. It will not happen by getting personal and throwing insult to my neighbors or fellow New Brunswickers. This is not the way we work. Our approach has always been collaborative, and this means listening to the experience and opinions of others. Mr. Speaker, 50 years later, we still have that dream. My children have that dream. My grandchildren have that dream. All New Brunswickers have that dream. And this was the dream of Louis Robichaud and Richard Hatfield. Aujourd'hui, à titre de ministre responsable de la francophonie par intérim, j'invite mes concitoyens néo-brunswickois ainsi que tous les parlementaires à se joindre à moi pour atteindre ce qui devrait être notre objectif commun, Monsieur le Président, celui de bâtir un Nouveau-Brunswick plus fort et plus uni. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Order. Order, please. Order, please. Deputy Edmondson Madawaska-Son.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, à écouter le ministre de la Société de développement régional, en fait, le ministre de Neguac, parler aujourd'hui et de voir l'ensemble de ses collègues taper de la main, crier, être contents. C'est clair, Monsieur le Président, qu'au commentaire du ministre de Neguac en disant qu'il n'y a pas eu de progrès, les raisons pourquoi il n'y a pas de progrès, c'est parce que le ministre responsable de la loi sur les langues officielles, c'est pas lui. C'est pas le ministre responsable de la francophonie non plus. Il y a seulement une personne et c'est le premier ministre du Nouveau-Brunswick. Hey. Si le ministre de Neguac ne peut pas comprendre cette situation-là, c'est clair que lui-même n'a aucune idée c'est quoi la loi sur les langues officielles. Si le ministre de Neguac pense que la loi sur les langues officielles égale ministère responsable de la francophonie, c'est clair, Monsieur le Président, qu'on est parti dans la mauvaise direction avec le gouvernement conservateur. Quand est-ce que le Premier ministre s'est levé pour défendre la loi sur les langues officielles? Quand est-ce que le Premier ministre s'est levé pour faire une déclaration ministérielle sur la loi sur les langues officielles? Monsieur le Président, jamais, jamais le Premier ministre l'a fait. C'est ça la réalité, Monsieur le Président. Que le ministre de Néguac se lève aujourd'hui en tant que francophone, essayer de faire croire aux Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises qui veut représenter les francophones et les Acadiens du Nouveau-Brunswick, c'est clair qu'il n'a aucune idée de quoi il parle. La journée qu'il va défendre la loi sur les langues officielles, la journée qu'il va laisser son premier ministre se lever pour parler sur la loi sur les langues officielles, c'est la journée où est-ce qu'on va faire du progrès. D'ici à ce temps-là, Monsieur le Président, d'ici à ce temps-là, on va continuer à régresser au Nouveau-Brunswick. C'est clair que ce ministre francophone, comme l'ensemble des autres ministres qui se disent francophones et francophiles, comme l'ensemble des ministres conservateurs, ils n'ont aucun intérêt de défendre la loi sur les langues officielles. Monsieur le Président, ce ministre de Néguac, d'une communauté francophone, devrait avoir honte de qu'est-ce qu'il a livré comme message aujourd'hui. Et j'espère que la population de sa circonscription, les francophones et les Acadiens, vont s'en souvenir longtemps.
Order, please. Member for Fredericton South, the leader of his party.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Oui, quelque chose a mal tourné. Quelque chose a mal tourné en cours de route vers une relation harmonieuse entre ce Premier ministre et les communautés francophones et autochtones. Il y a un manque de respect de la part de ce Premier ministre. Ce Premier ministre a pris des décisions qui menacent les communautés francophones et autochtones. The Premier has ripped up tax agreements essential to the economic development of First Nations and fear-mongered over the assertion of Aboriginal title. He's appointed the former leader of the People's Alliance to a committee that's reviewing recommendations for strengthening the Official Languages Act when he's known for wanting to weaken it. He's slammed the door on children who are going to be entering school for the first time this year and want to take French immersion. What does he think he's doing? If we want to talk about harmony, Mr. Speaker, the minister simply needed to attend the ceremonies on Truth and Reconciliation Day in Fredericton, where the Grand Council of the Wolastoqey people held ceremonies, and there were 1,000 Anglophones and Francophones who participated in a position of solidarity. The feeling of respect and harmony was palpable, Mr. Speaker. The same could be said about the demonstrations that were held here recently with Francophones, Acadians, First Nations, and Anglophone supporters with them in front of this Legislative Assembly. Again, solidarity and mutual respect and harmony, Mr. Speaker, the harmony that this Premier is trying to disrupt. Mr. Speaker, it's clear, Mr. Speaker, that when it comes to harmony, the minister could even think about his own riding. I've been to Chez Raymond numerous times. Chez Raymond in his own riding in Néguac, where you have families, Mi'kmaq families, Acadian families, Anglophone families, sharing meals harmoniously at Chez Raymond. Where is the disharmony? The disharmony is between this Premier and the Francophone, First Nation, and Acadian peoples of this province, Mr. Speaker. That is where the disharmony lies. He has a responsibility to protect minority rights and enhance them against the majority, and he's failing to do that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Presentation of petitions. Answers to petitions and written questions. Presentation of committee reports. Introduction of bills. Recognize the Minister of Justice. Welcome back, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that a bill entitled Fiduciaries' Access to Digital Assets Act be now read a first time.
Order, please.
The Minister of Justice moves that a bill entitled Fiduciaries' Access to Digital Assets Act be now read a first time. Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Fiduciaries' Access to Digital Assets Act is new legislation designed to facilitate fiduciary access to a person's digital assets after they die or lose capacity. This bill will provide a legislative framework which will allow fiduciaries easier access to such assets and will provide more certainty and predictability for account holders, fiduciaries, custodians, and courts when dealing with digital assets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is it the pleasure of the House that a bill entitled Fiduciaries' Access to Digital Assets Act be now read a first time? All those in favour of the motion, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, please say nay. In my opinion, the yeas have it. I declare the motion carried.
Fiduciaries' Access to Digital Assets Act.
The Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill entitled Support, Decision Making and Representation Act be now read a first time.
The Minister of Justice moves that an act entitled Supported Decision-Making and Representation Act be now read a first time. Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce a bill that will modernize the law relating to adult guardianship and establish a scheme for supported decision-making. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is it the pleasure of the House that a bill entitled Supported Decision-Making and Representation Act be now read a first time? All those in favour of the motion, please say yea. All those opposed, please say nay. In my opinion, the yeas have it. I declare the motion carried.
Supported Decision-Making and Representation Act.
Notices of motion. The Deputy Caracat.
Monsieur le Président, je donne avis de motion portant que le jeudi 24 novembre 2022, appuyé par le député de Chipagan-Lamec-Miscou, je proposerai ce qui suit. Attendu que le Nouveau-Brunswick n'a pas de calendrier législatif fixe de jour de séance, attendu qu'un calendrier législatif fixe présente de nombreux avantages pour le public et les membres élus, notamment en ce qui concerne la prévisibilité, la planification logistique et le fait de rendre l'Assemblée législative plus conviviale pour les familles. Qu'il soit à ces causes résolues que l'Assemblée législative ordonne au comité permanent de la procédure, des privilèges et des hauts fonctionnaires de l'Assemblée d'examiner les options relatives à un calendrier législatif fixe et de revenir à l'Assemblée législative dans les 2 mois avec des recommandations. Merci.
The Deputy de Caracat gives notice for November 24th, Thursday. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I give notice that on Thursday, November 24th, 2022, I shall move the following resolution, seconded by the MLA for Kent South. Whereas many New Brunswickers throughout the province are worried about the difficulty they and their family members are having in obtaining crucial health services in a timely manner, whereas it is widely acknowledged that a severe shortage of healthcare professionals and health support workers has left our New Brunswick healthcare system in crisis, whereas this challenge must be recognized as a top priority that we must tackle without delay, whereas many frontline healthcare workers and professional health organizations have offered their insights and advice on how these challenges in our healthcare system can best be addressed, whereas it is in everyone's interest to heed this advice and move forward with a comprehensive health action plan, whereas Liberal leader Susan Holt has outlined a plan to improve healthcare delivery and tackle our healthcare crisis, be it therefore resolved that the Legislative Assembly urge the government to take the following actions. relever les défis qui ont mené à la réduction et à la fermeture des services d'urgence par l'établissement de centres de soins multidisciplinaires dotés d'une équipe mixte de professionnels de la santé, fournir un financement supplémentaire pour les soins communautaires après les heures de travail et pour la formation et l'embauche de travailleurs paramédicaux. Traiter les travailleurs de la santé avec respect, offrir des salaires compétitifs, créer des incitatifs pour retenir et attirer les professionnels de la santé et assurer un environnement de travail positif qui reconnaît l'équilibre travail-vie personnelle. Élaborer une stratégie de recrutement agressive et ciblée qui vise les nouveaux diplômés et leur promet des emplois permanents à temps plein. Offrir un allègement ciblé des frais de scolarité et des incitations à la formation pour les nouveaux arrivants dans des programmes qui offrent une formation visant à combler les pénuries de main-d'œuvre dans le secteur de la santé. Collaborer avec les établissements de formation postsecondaire et les associations professionnelles pour offrir de meilleures possibilités de formation et de programmes de recrutement efficaces. Et travailler en tandem avec les communautés sur des stratégies de programmes de recrutement dans le domaine de la santé. Et créer un bureau de recrutement du personnel de santé axé sur les résultats avec une orientation laser, des objectifs ciblés et une responsabilisation. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Leader of the Official Opposition gives notice for November the 24th. Député de Caracat.
Monsieur le Président, je donne avis de motion portant que le jeudi 24 novembre 2022, appuyé par le député de Baie de Chédiac-Dieppe, je proposerai ce qui suit. Attendu que les commissaires nommés pour entreprendre un examen de la loi sur les langues officielles ont présenté leur rapport au Premier ministre le 21 décembre 2021. Attendu qu'en dépit des demandes de l'opposition officielle en avril 2021 et de la commissaire aux langues officielles en juin 2021 pour que le Premier ministre réponde au rapport, celui-ci ne l'a pas fait. Attendu que le 15 novembre 2022, soit près d'un an après le dépôt du rapport, le Premier ministre n'avait toujours pas répondu au rapport. Attendu qu'il a été révélé que le Premier ministre avait secrètement nommé l'ancien chef du People's Alliance, un parti antibilingue, à un comité interne chargé d'examiner les révisions de la loi sur les langues officielles. Attendu que les opinions et les préjugés de l'ancien chef du People's Alliance sont bien connus, il a demandé l'élimination du poste de commissaire aux langues officielles, a demandé la fusion des deux régies de santé, a suggéré que les exigences en matière de compétences linguistiques dans la fonction publique soient réduites, a demandé l'élimination du programme d'immersion française et a exprimé de nombreuses autres opinions contraires à l'esprit et à l'intention de la loi sur les langues officielles. Attendu que le Premier ministre a également exprimé son appui à des politiques qui mineraient la nature du bilinguisme et éroderaient les protections actuellement prévues par la loi sur les langues officielles. Attendu que l'on craint de plus en plus que le Premier ministre et son gouvernement ne prennent bientôt des mesures qui menacent la protection des droits des minorités linguistiques et nuisent à notre statut de seule province officiellement bilingue du Canada. Attendu qu'il y a une condamnation générale des actions du Premier ministre qui a nommé le député de Fredericton-Grand Lake au comité interne du gouvernement chargé de décider s'il y a lieu de modifier la loi sur les langues officielles, qui a annoncé son intention d'éliminer le programme d'immersion française sans données pour appuyer sa décision et qui réfléchit à d'autres changements aux langues officielles qui constitueraient un recul pour notre province. Attendu que les membres de l'Assemblée législative devraient avoir l'occasion de discuter de l'importance de la loi sur les langues officielles et des dangers de prendre des mesures pour la miner et de mettre en œuvre des politiques qui en feraient autant. Qu'il soit à ces causes résolues que l'Assemblée législative exhorte le gouvernement à fournir immédiatement une réponse au rapport de la révision de la loi sur les langues officielles et que le gouvernement ne propose aucun changement qui diminuerait les droits et les protections accordées aux Néo-Brunswickois en vertu de la loi sur les langues officielles. Merci.
La députée de Caracat donne avis de motion pour le jeudi le 24e novembre. Député de Restigouche-Ouest.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je donne avis de motion portant que jeudi le 24 novembre 2022, appuyé de mon collègue le député de Victoria-Lavallée, je proposais ce qui suit. Whereas New Brunswick adopted the Official Language Act in 1969, before Canada had even adopted an Official Language Act.
attendu que le Nouveau-Brunswick est la seule province officiellement bilingue au Canada. Whereas the House of Commons and the Senate of Canada both have standing committees on official languages. Attendu que la loi sur les langues officielles du Nouveau-Brunswick contient une exigence selon laquelle elle doit être révisée tous les 10 ans. Whereas the government has received the report of the 2021 review of the Official Language Act of New Brunswick. Whereas the official opposition accepts all recommendations included in the Commissioner's report, qu'il soit à ces causes résolu, Monsieur le Président, que l'Assemblée législative exhorte le gouvernement à établir un ministère des langues officielles. Merci.
Le député de Restigouche-West donne avis de motion pour le jeudi le 24 novembre. Le député de Victoria-Lavallee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merci, Monsieur le Président. I give notice that on Thursday, November 24, 2022, I shall move the following resolution, seconded by the MLA for Chediac-Beaubassin-Capelé. Attendu que chaque membre de l'Assemblée législative devrait avoir la possibilité de participer pleinement au travail de l'Assemblée législative, whereas parliamentary bodies, including the New Brunswick Legislature, adapted to the reality of COVID-19 and modified the rules for participation by elected members in the affairs of Parliament and/or legislative assemblies and adopted the use of technology that provided for virtual participation. Attendu qu'une fois l'arrêt obligatoire levé, l'Assemblée législative de Nouveau-Brunswick a supprimé la possibilité pour les députés de participer aux affaires de l'Assemblée législative au moyen de la technologie virtuelle. Whereas there are many compelling reasons to permit participation through the use of remote technology in certain circumstances, including the risk associated with traveling long distances in inclement weather, illness, and difficulties faced by mothers with newborn and primary caregivers with children that require child care, which may not be available outside of the home. Attendu que les femmes sont sous-représentées en politique et que le manque d'options pour participer à l'Assemblée législative, notamment par voie virtuelle, peut constituer un obstacle à la participation et décourage les femmes de se porter candidates à l'Assemblée législative, qui n'est pas considérée comme une institution favorable à la famille. Be it therefore resolved that this Legislative Assembly direct the Standing Committee on Procedure, Privileges and Legislative Officers to look at modifying the standing rules that would permit participation in the Legislative Assembly through the use of virtual technology and report back to the Legislative Assembly within 2 months with recommendations for change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Victoria-Lavallee gives notice of motion for Thursday, the 24th of November. The député de Tracadie-Shiloh.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je donne avis de motion portant que le jeudi 24 novembre 2022, appuyé par le député de Campbellton-Dalhousie, je proposerai ce qui suit. Attendu que le gouvernement a annulé le programme des droits de scolarité gratuits et le programme d'allègement des droits de scolarité pour la classe moyenne, qui permettrait à de nombreux étudiants de s'inscrire dans un établissement postsecondaire. Attendu qu'avec la décision de la province d'annuler le programme Connexion Assurance-Emploi qui aidait les étudiants à payer leur nourriture et leur logement pendant qu'ils poursuivaient leurs études. Attendu que le programme présenté par le gouvernement pour l'allègement des intérêts sur la portion provinciale des prêts étudiants ne favorise pas l'accès à l'éducation postsecondaire, qu'il soit à ces causes résolu que l'Assemblée législative exhorte le gouvernement à présenter un programme d'aide complet pour appuyer l'accès à l'éducation postsecondaire. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Le député de Tracadie-Shiloh donne avis de motion pour le jeudi le 24 novembre. Government motions for the ordering of the business of the House. Recognize the Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after routine business today, it's the intention of government that All bills introduced today for second reading will be read on all bills introduced today, will go to second reading on Tuesday, November 22nd. Any bill that receives second reading today is referred to the Standing Committee on Economic Policy. Second reading of Bill 6, an act respecting enduring power of Attorneys Act and Wills Act. And then after that, the House will resolve itself into Committee of the Whole House for consideration of Bill 8. And then following that, the House will adjourn and allow for the Economic Policy Committee to meet to consider Bill 3. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second reading.
Bill 6.
Is it the pleasure of the House that Bill 6 be now read a second time? Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise in the House to speak in greater detail on the bill entitled An Act Respecting the Enduring Powers of Attorney Act and the Wills Act, and it now be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, prior to December 2020, both the Wills Act and the Enduring Powers of Attorney Act required wills and enduring powers of attorney to be signed and witnessed in person. As the COVID-19 pandemic took hold, the inability to hold meetings in person became somewhat of a concern. In particular, the legal community expressed concerns about the inability to meet with clients wishing to make wills and powers of attorney, especially those in nursing homes, hospitals, or isolation. In response to these concerns, both the Wills Act and the Enduring Powers of Attorney Act were amended to allow for a person making a will or an enduring power of attorney to meet with a lawyer and required witnesses by using an electronic means of communication, providing all other legal requirements were met. Mr. Speaker, an expiry date of December 31st, 2022 was put in place at the time of the previous amendments in hopes of covering the duration of the pandemic, while also providing time to consider whether the option should be offered permanently. Although people have thankfully returned to meeting in person, there may still be times when this is a challenge. The government is therefore pleased to offer New Brunswickers the permanent option of using an electronic means of communication when signing and witnessing wills and powers and enduring powers of attorney. Mr. Speaker, the bill also amends the Enduring Powers of Attorney Act to clarify that the Act is intended to cover enduring powers of attorney for personal use and is not applicable to irrevocable powers of attorney used for commercial purposes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll just be brief. We don't oppose this bill. I think it's something that was helpful throughout the pandemic, and as we've seen in various areas of conducting business, the pandemic has created some new normals. Like, we have a lot more meetings done now virtually instead of traveling all over the province to have short meetings at times. You know, to meet clients for lawyers, if they're meeting clients, they can meet over Zoom now. And to have this tool, I think, is something that it can be helpful. It's not necessarily encouraged to be the normal practice. I think all practicing lawyers try to strive to have, you know, face-to-face contact as much as they can. There's issues with respect to wills and powers of attorney to assess capacity and those types of issues. And so I think it's still preferred practice to have in-face person meetings, but to have a tool, sometimes there could be circumstances that this could be a helpful situation. And I think there hasn't been much in the way of complaints through the Law Society throughout the pandemic that is noteworthy. So I think it's something that can continue and can continue under, you know, the observation and being monitored by the Law Society as well. So we support this going through. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Fredericton South and Leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise at second reading on an act respecting the Enduring Powers and Attorney Act and the Wills Act. Mr. Speaker, it's actually a delight to see this bill come forward to ensure that that what was temporarily granted is going to become a permanent state of affairs to ensure that electronic means can be used for communicating and executing enduring powers of attorney and wills. Very helpful. I've run into this myself at a personal level in terms of communicating powers of attorney, and this is going to be great. So while I'm not a lawyer, I have a little bit of experience with this, and I can see its utility, no question about it, and I thank the Minister for bringing it forward so that we can enshrine this among the statutes of New Brunswick. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It is the pleasure of the House that Bill number 6 be now read a second time. All those in favour of the motion, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, please say nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. I declare the motion carried.
An act respecting the Enduring Powers of Attorney Act and the Wills Act. Economic policy.
Pardon?
Senate Economic Policy.
All right. Pursuant to Standing Rule 42.1, Bill number 6 is referred to the Standing Committee on Economic Policy. Pursuant to orders of the day, the House will now dissolve into Committee of the Whole, and I call on the member for Moncton Southwest to take the chair.
Call the meeting to order. Is it the pleasure of the committee to take into consideration Bill number 8? All those in favour will please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carried. I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll just be very brief. Yesterday we had our Opposition Day where we brought forward Bill 8, and I thank the members of the House that supported it yesterday evening. We had a nice constructive debate on all sides of the House here. It's a piece of legislation to close the loophole that when there's a vacancy, that the by-election be called within the 6-month time frame. The intent of the legislation is to have it held within 6 months, but there is opportunity to exploit the language where you might set a date within 6 months, but have the polling day at some future time that can be much down the road. And so this bill is there to have the election writ issued within the 6-month period and have the polling day following the writ within a time frame of 38 days, I believe it is, in the bill. So that is the legislation that we brought forward. I was provided with an amendment as well yesterday, a draft amendment. I'm not sure if it's going to be brought forward. It's based on the recommendation, I understand, from the Chief Electoral Officer, who in her report from 2019 expressed that we should be bringing this legislation forward, but she also had a recommendation that there be a subparagraph that would limit the effect of this legislation to if there was a general election planned within the next 12 months of the vacancy being certified. So if there's a general election date set for September 15th and within 12 months to that date, the vacancy being certified, then the effect of this legislation would not take effect, but you would still have the option if you wanted to set a by-election, but you wouldn't be required to under that sub-amendment or sub-paragraph. So I think if we'd be supportive if that is what the government side wants to bring forward. I think it's still good legislation. It's what the Chief Electoral Officer recommended, and we'd be prepared to support that as well. So thank you very much.
there any questions or comments on the bill? I recognize the Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And look, once again, I just want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for bringing the bill forward and for the collaboration that we've had over the last 24 hours here in the House. And he's quite right. We did circulate the draft amendment yesterday for the opposition and for members of the Green Party to take a look at. So, Madam Chair, without any further ado, I am going to move that amendment right now, and that the bill be amended as follows: that in section 15(1)(a), repeal the portion preceding paragraph A and substitute the following. 15(1), subject to subsection 1.1, where a vacancy in the Legislative Assembly is certified to the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly or the Clerk of the Legislative Assembly as provided by Section 27 of the Legislative Assembly Act, the Lieutenant Governor and Council shall direct the issue of a writ of election for the electoral district for which the vacancy occurred, and shall, B, in paragraph A, strike out the date of the writ and the date that the seat becomes vacant, and substitute the fix the date on which the writ is issued and the certification, respectively. And C, in paragraph B, strike out the date of the ordinary polling day and the date of the writ, and substitute fix the date of the ordinary polling day and the date of the issue of the writ, respectively. Add subsection 15(1) the following. 15(1.1), if the vacancy of the Legislative Assembly is certified during the 12-month period immediately preceding the date of a scheduled general election, the Lieutenant Governor and Council is not required to act under subsection 1. Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's all my remarks today. And I look forward to moving this bill forward, and we'll go from there.
It has been moved by the Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training, Labour that Section 1 be amended as follows. In subsection 15(1), a repeal to the preceding paragraph and substitute the following. Subject to subsection 1(1), where a vacancy in Legislative Assembly is certified to the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly or the Clerk of the Legislative Assembly as provided by Section 27 of the Legislative Assembly Act, the Lieutenant Governor and Council shall direct the issue of a writ of election for the electoral district for which the vacancy occurred, and shall be in paragraph A, strike out the date of the writ and the date of the seat becomes vacant, and substitute fix the date on which the writ is issued and the certification respectively. C, in paragraph B, strike out the date of the ordinary polling day and the date of the writ, and substitute fix the date of the ordinary polling day and if the date of the issue of the writ, respectively. Add after subsection 15-1 the following. If the vacancy of the Legislative Assembly is certified during the 12-month period immediately preceding the date of a scheduled general election, the Lieutenant Governor and Council is not required to act under subsection 1. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none? Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the amendment? All those in favour, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed will please say nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. I declare the amendment carried. Is it the pleasure of the committee that Bill number 8 stand as amended and that I report the bill as amended? All those in favour, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed will please say nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. I declare the motion carried.
So I recognize you. May I be seated? Minister Post-Secretary. Oh, excuse me. Member for Restigouche-Jour.
Mr. Speaker, it was agreed that we would get an unanimous consent to go through third reading of the Bill 8, I guess. So I'm asking if you could check if we have unanimous consent to go through third reading.
Do we have unanimous consent?
Agreed.
Committee report. Member for Moncton Southwest.
Speaker, from the Committee of the Whole House, I present a report and ask leave to make a further report. Your committee have had under consideration Bill number 8 and have agreed to the same with certain amendments.
The member for Moncton Southwest from the Committee of the Whole House presents a report and asks leave to make a further statement. They have under consideration Bill number 8 and have agreed to the same with certain amendments. All those in favour of the motion, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. The motion carried. Third reading.
Bill number 8.
Is it the pleasure of the House that Bill number 8 be now read a third time? All those in favour of the motion, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, please say nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. I declare the motion carried.
Enact amend the Elections Act.
This bill, having had 3 separate readings, is it the pleasure of the House that they do now pass? All those in favour of the motion, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, please say nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. I declare the motion carried. Motion to adjourn the House. Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House be now adjourned.
Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour moves that the House be now adjourned. All those in favour, please say yea. Yea. All those opposed, please say nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. I declare the House to now be adjourned. Thank you, members.